Invited to the March 7th work session. If I can get approval of the agenda at this time.
So moved, Chairman.
Second.
Second. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Ayes have it. All right, we're having a work session on water and sewer options. Who'd like to start, Mr. Risner? Are you going to start us off, or?
I can just quickly say, Mr. Ingram's been doing a lot of work on all sorts of different water and sewer options to present to you, and so I'll turn it over to him, and I'm here to answer any questions y'all might have.
This hitting the first, tonight, we're on the agenda is the Community Development Block Grant. And I'll hit that one first because we need y'all to make a decision tonight because we're getting in short rows on getting an application prepared. All right.
That's yours.
We looked at two projects, one in Commissioner Martin's district, and it was, it's the burgundy colored topping and the map. This one right here, that's the map, and that's the cost estimate right there. We had looked at this back in 2019. We had come through and laid out the whole area on what we thought phases would be, just to have some ideas on how to break it up for cost. The top cost estimate you got is for phase one in a 1A, which is, I believe it's Adahi, and then Alton. And we're looking at a cost of $2,066,000. And these are based off of costs that have occurred on bid projects since the end of August. So they're all relatively fresh. The second cost estimate is for a phase two area, which is Arlethea and part of Bethune. That cost was $1,603,183. And those are the two sewer options that we can get to, the simplest and easiest to serve. The second area we looked at was Bradley Water. This one's a little bit more complicated, and it's the gold. It's the gold-headed cost estimates here.
Thanks, that it?
Yep. Okay.
Yeah.
The existing water main runs to Wheeler Road and Highway 11, stops there at Bradley Baptist Church. Runs about 40 PSI. If we go out Highway 11, continue out toward the Wayside Bradley School, pressure will decrease because the road rises, topography increases. Going out Hungerford Road, there's some rolling hills and then it drops off. To service the Hungerford Road area, you're looking at approximately $2,172,851 to serve that, and you would serve 6870 houses. The other option, part of that would be to go out Highway 11, hit Morris Road. To serve that area, you're looking at roughly 2,099,000. The killer for this, there are two things we've got to find out. Number one, depending on how much water we can pull out of Widener Drive, option one is a booster pump station. I have to have the booster pump station regardless. No questions asked. I'll need it to fill up some kind of storage vessel. What I don't know is, do I have to extend the line back to the tank here at the government center to give me enough flow? I don't know if I can get 500 gallons a minute out of that line, if I can get 200 or 300. So most of Highway 11 booster pump station may not be needed. It's roughly $1.5 million. may not need it. We'll need the booster pump station to tie on and pump out. The second item is the last one. To continue extending the main from where it is now, we need some type of storage facility that we can pump up and maintain pressure where that area out in that intersection will have at least 60 PSI. We looked at a 200,000 gallon tank. Going to a smaller tank, we only saved about $40,000, $50,000, maybe 60. Even going down to 100, there's not much difference. And we could go to a 300,000 gallon tank for another $100,000. So you could increase the capacity from 200 to 300 for another $100,000. You're looking at roughly $1,310,000 to put up some type of storage facility. So regardless of which project we do, if the board chooses to move forward, the county's going to end up having to put some amount of money into each one of these projects to make them work. So, questions on the Bradley water supply?
Yeah, you were talking about coming to the tower here for water. The concrete plant, it came off of Widener Drive, or did it come straight down the?
It came off Widener Drive. The line came back. There's a fire hydrant on the end of it just past the house, and it stopped there.
Okay.
It just fed off whatever system pressure was.
Okay. For some reason, I thought it came back from here to there.
It came south down Highway 11
Yeah.
from that intersection.
What's the current PSI in that area right now?
Static runs about 40. When you have a fire flow, it drops into the mid-30s. Don had told me once before, for the nursing home, he can get 800, 900,000 gallons a minute, depending on what tank levels are, and he's okay from there. But going out, when you hit Highway 11 and you go out, you're on a steady hill all the way up to the Bradley Wayside School, actually on to the Davis property, which is another 0.3 of a mile,
Right.
or another 0.6 of a mile.
So that's a fire protection issue as well, right?
So for us to expand that system out there, we're going to have to do something with the storage, some type of storage tank.
Would that storage help back up any other areas or close to grade, considering what we went through last year?
No, because there's no
Too far away.
supply.
Ah, no supply. So we're just filling it just to have pressure out there.
Right.
Gotcha.
Just thinking outside the box, the well at the animal shelter, has it ever been tested to see what it's capable of doing? Or is that even an option to look at it?
Brandon and I talked about that yesterday. I've been told it'll do 50, 60 gallons a minute, maybe as much as 100. But that's 100 gallons a minute is 144,000 gallons a day. And typically you only want to pump it 12 hours a day, so there's a chance to recharge. So it would pump about 72,000 gallons a day. So we could use it to supplement, yes.
Tim, looking at the Hungerford Road service area,
Yes, sir.
I noticed there's 9,000 linear foot. Approximately how far, I haven't put a wheel to the road, how far does that carry it?
Is it St. Anne's Church? Or as you go down and you go around the curve, Thornton goes off to the right, North Cross comes in,
Right.
and just right down beyond it on the left, there's a church sitting there.
So you're talking about a mile and 3/4 off Highway 11 to the railroad.
Yeah, maybe a mile and 18.
And I'm gonna say, we may need to budget this for the grant at hand and make it a multi-year application where we have $1 million grant effectively, and we take that as far as we can, catching Slocum and other needed areas, and then reapply and extend the project further in coming years. Because I know in the area, there are houses that share wells. So you may have one well running multiple houses just because of the lack of wells in that area. And that's a concern. And also you have no hydrants on that side of the tracks. When there's a fire, you're at the mercy of the railroad.
So you said multi-year, right? So
Right.
what would you do in terms of prioritization first and then second?
You've got to come under the railroad and you run it, you do your calculations and you figure as far as you can go catching the side roads as you go.
All right, I'm just, from here, what do you prioritize?
Greg might have to correct me on this, but the $1 million grant would have to be used immediately in the Hungerford Road area. It couldn't be used on the storage tank because that would be out of the area. Even though that down the road is a needed part of the project, but we're trying to benefit the residents in that area.
Right, so you do Hungerford Road first based on the GFA, and then your next area, or the next portion would be what?
You could run about 4,142 feet. That's rough. If you take the total cost and divide it by 9,000, that's wrong. I didn't, because it's more than 9,000. 9, 10, 4, 10, 4, 12, 760.
And when we go down the side roads, we may not need a 12-inch, a 6 or,
Well, that's what we ran, was 6s and 8s.
okay.
You can run about 5,700 feet. The issue we're gonna have is, where do we impact the homes? How many homes that we impact?
Right.
You wanna talk about that, Greg, or?
Yeah, so the biggest issue to look out for is that you want a low cost per person. So, if you're running either just the Hungerford Road surface area, or if you did a combination of the phase 1, 1A, and 2 on the sewer project, in either of those cases, you would be serving about 68 houses, which I would guesstimate probably a little over 120 people. Some houses may be vacant, some houses maybe one person. You might get a 4 or 5 person family out there. But at that point, you're looking at about $8,000 per person in terms of cost, which at that point, that would be high end of where I would be comfortable on the competition side. And that's if you do the entirety of one of those phases, looking at a couple, probably around, $2 3/4 million in match, to help get you to a competitive project, based off the number of people that you serve. Now, admittedly, it could be that everybody's numbers are going to be way off this year. It could be that the state now starts accepting, cost per person of 10,000, 12,000. In the past, they have wanted 5,000. So even if we're at 8,000 with inflation now, that still is probably on the higher end of what they would want. So I would be careful about reducing any of these project areas too much to the point where you lose a significant number of houses or go below around that, 50 to 60 house range. If you go below that, I'm a little bit worried about the competitiveness.
And Tim, is it true that, just say, with what Greg was saying, we need to stay in the 68, 70 house range based on this project? We got to do at least that many houses to be competitive to get the grant in the first place. But didn't you say we've got to also do the pump station and the storage option to be able to get those 70 houses?
I've got to do the pump station, and I need to do some type of storage we tried to get costs to put up the 200,000 gallon standpipe that the county has that's
Right.
sitting, and we have not been able to do that. The vendor the Southeastern Tank that does that, they just, they basically blew me off because they told me their cost would be similar to a tank. I know the elevated tank, the $900,000 cost, that's current. So, I mean, if we can get by and not have to run the line back, you're talking $250,000 for a booster pump station and tie-ins, and then you're talking about the tank, and then you're talking about Hungerford Road or either Highway 11, whichever one you want to do.
So if we did a 250,000 pump station, and then the 1.3, those rough numbers, 1.3 storage tank, we're still looking at 155 plus, if it was Hungerford Road, the 2.1, so we're still looking at 3.7, 3.8 million for that project.
You look at 2172, 851, and then 250 for your booster station, and then 1,310,000. It's 3,732,887, and you'd have $1 million grant, so you'd have 2.73 million match,
How much match?
2.73 million.
Greg almost nailed that one dead on, didn't he?
I'd already been running numbers.
Oh,
He cheated before he
I
got
was
here.
just gonna say, man, that's pretty good for rough estimates, Greg.
And give me that service number again, how many?
They're 68.
68?
And that's,
This-
that's 68 to the church.
Yeah,
And that's number of houses on total project cost, not our cost, right? For the grant.
They calculated as number of houses out of the grant amount.
Okay.
So from DCA's perspective, if you put in more match, not only are they gonna give you bonus points for the match that you put in, they're also gonna give you bonus points for lowering your cost per person because you're serving more people with the same $1 million grant.
So, but at this rate, $1 million grant, that's not that's the grant matching some of our funding at that rate.
Thing about the water tank and the booster pump, that's going to also benefit every customer north of the corner, wherever we put the pump station at. So your nursing home's going to benefit every customer on Highway 11 also. So it's going to benefit more than just
Yeah.
across the tracks, Hungerford Road area,
And
and any future expansion.
yeah, I was gonna say any future expansion, then when we go to the next phase, that's already there, so it's not like we're gonna have another booster pump station, storage tank for that.
this is the same problem we had Sun Valley Sewer. We had to build some of the main infrastructure the first time around to be able to do phase 1A, 1 and 1A, or do phase 2. We had to build a pump station, we had to put force main in, we had to put gravity in. In today's dollars, that pump station's $400,000 now. That's ridiculous.
And the grant's not eligible for the infrastructure part of it, you gotta serve houses. So phase 1 couldn't be lines, tank, booster pump. Phase 2, all the houses.
Now, you'll need to be able to tie it to specific houses.
In the yards.
Yeah.
And we can't get there without the booster pump or the tank.
Well, but if we put a tank out there, it ain't gonna fill up. I mean, you're gonna get 72 feet of water in standpipe, and that's all you're gonna get. Ideally, you'd have one that was 140 feet, so it'd be about halfway.
And the standpipe was, give me the number again, was that 250?
I-
But he didn't quote it, but.
He wouldn't quote it. He told me it'd be comparable to this elevated tank.
So, are there any other people that do standpipes?
No.
In the whole wide United States of America.
Reason being, Aqua Storage does a lot for the agricultural community.
Yep.
Most folks don't do standpipes because the column of water is equal top to bottom. In the elevated tank, all your water's in the top. So if you drop 23 feet in a standpipe, you lose 10 PSI. You drop 23 feet in an elevated tank, you only lose 3 or 4
Gotcha.
because of the way the elliptoid and elliptical surfaces and curves. And so you don't see a lot of them anymore. At one time, they were pretty popular because they were basically a buck quarter gallon.
Nobody else anywhere. That blows my mind, that single source monopoly.
Their southeastern tank is out of Tennessee. I've never seen anybody else that does one. Don't know of anybody else that does one. Never had anybody that had never had another one bid one.
We got a standpipe we can't use.
Right this minute, we can't.
Can we sell it? Get somebody else to fight
Now,
on it?
they may buy it because they have issues getting materials.
I'm just thinking outside of it, we can't get it, you know, installed, maybe we can sell it. At least get something back out of it. You never know with the price of inflation, we might be more than what we paid for originally.
Any suppliers need that?
I'll shoot Dustin email, Dustin Dowdy, who's the president, and copy Jason on it, see if we can get somewhere with it.
And the reason why we can't use that standpipe is,
No way to fill it up.
huh?
No way to fill it up.
Right,
No way to
yeah.
fill it up.
I mean, there's not enough pressure on the system out there to fill a standpipe up or elevated tank, either one.
But once we get the booster pump,
I'll be able to fill something up, yes. So you're looking at a standpipe that's 120 feet tall. So it's gonna generate about 51, 52 pounds full.
so let me just clarify it so I get it. If I change to the booster pump, I can use an existing standpipe, right? And I'm delaying option 4, right?
Yes,
Okay. And then later, I still get my booster pump, which I'm gonna need anyway, right?
but I cannot tell you what it costs to put it up because I can't get an answer out of them.
We don't need it immediately, so we have time to figure that part out,
Right,
right?
that's
So if I
right.
was piecing this together, I could use the standpipe with the booster pump, just allocating those funds over there, right? And we're gonna need the booster pump anyway.
It's going to
It's-
help all
it's
your
just a
existing
ma- It's just a
customers.
matter of, do we have to come back here or can we pick up where we at and go?
Gotcha.
So if we
We already have a site for it.
Yep.
Was there any issues when the concrete plant was running? Did they have a lack of flow at their peak concrete production?
There were times they couldn't open up and fill because it sucked the line down too much.
I got a standpipe with how many gallons?
It's 200,000.
200,000. That'll offset that. We won't have that issue. Get you to another grant cycle, right?
It should. Just remember one thing. You go to the elevated tank, you're gonna go out Highway 11 with it. That's the most ideal place to go.
Yep.
And it's gonna render whatever you spend on this standpipe useless.
Gotcha.
I mean, you could put the standpipe up somewhere there around Bradley. And it would improve flow and pressure there.
Yep.
But when you go up the road, Highway 11, if you go Bradley Wayside School, or if you go further to the other piece of property that we found or looked at,
But as far
That
as,
standpipe's gonna be about 40 or 45 feet too short.
but with regard to fire protection, that standpipe still is in play.
Right. But we also have to
But
look at,
it will be in play until you put up an elevated tank.
We put up an elevated tank.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Because water always seeks its natural level.
Of course.
So to fill up the elevated tank, I got to shut the standpipe off, or it's just gonna blow out the top of it
Yep.
because of the higher pressure of the generator.
I'm gonna ask a silly question because I don't know any better. If I stand the pipe up, can I take it and move it someplace later?
Yeah. I mean, we had it in the industrial park and we took it down.
Hmm.
And so we can pour a concrete foundation and put it back up now.
Okay, I'm all about recycling, so that's why I asked the question. It's in my northern spirit to recycle. So,
you know, I have a concern and a question. If we run 12-inch or whatever size line that's specified past the Bradley Wayside School, how many customers are we going to pick up there? Probably not as many as running through the Hungerford Road area, where it's a dense population through there, and a higher, fire risk area.
Right.
So that's something to consider also. Payback's not there running north, other it's going,
The only option running north allows you to do is come back down Green Settlement Road. If you build the tank here at the church, you're gonna end up going down Wheeler Road
right.
to cut through, to cut your distance off. A lot of options, a lot of different ways to do it.
Correct, and I think, the wells are pretty good, and everybody's spaced out a little bit more through the Wheeler Road and Green Settlement area. I don't really hear of any water issues in that sector. I'm more focused right now in the Bradley area, servicing people that don't have, or have a minimal amount.
I just want to clarify, Hungerford Road and service area, priority, right? And the standpipe helps support that without having to go to 1.3 million, 1.5, no, 1.3. And as long as we don't need the booster pump, that makes life a little easier. If we do need the booster pump, that's just future expansion, correct?
Well, booster pump, if I can get 200 or 300 gallons a minute out of Widener Drive,
Mm-hmm.
I don't need to bring the 12 back here.
Okay.
If I can't, I'm going to have to bring the 12 back here.
Should
When
be
will
able
we
to get
know
that
that?
out.
Huh?
Should be able to get it out of the line.
Should be able to.
What size is Widener Drive? Is that an 8 or 10?
It's an 8.
8.
We have not gone and asked or looked at a fire flow because we didn't know which way we were going to go.
Okay.
And did not really want to get some issue running till we knew what we were going to do.
I'm a fan of the Hunger Road service here with a stand-up pipe. And worst case scenario, we know the booster pump is the alternative, right?
Right. Well, to get just a basic package booster station it'll run us 200, 225 without batting an eye.
Gotcha.
And again, if I can get the flow, we can get the flow out of there. We hook it up, take it and go.
What's the timing on the application?
June 1.
Huh, okay.
Let me clarify, you said that the standpipe and the tower would be the same price?
He told me they would be very close.
If he was
What he
building
told
it.
If he was building a new standpipe
But we got
versus tower.
Well, that's the thing. He knows, I mean, that was the whole idea is we've got a standpipe, we want to put it up. What's it going to cost?
But we don't know the cost yet.
I don't know. That's right. I do not know.
But Tim just said that it could be the same price as a tank, correct? If I got,
It
So you're
could
gonna-
be.
you're gonna do half as much with the same amount. Is that,
We
Is
need
that
a hard
correct
number
to
on
say?
that. We need a hard number on that to really call that, right?
that's why the idea I had is if we had some value in that pipe that we could possibly sell,
Right.
roll that money back into this project, maybe to apply it to the tank or whatever else. That we've got what we need because there's some shortcomings on the standpipe versus
Right.
the tank.
I don't I don't have a problem with that logic either. You know, you just have to weigh that 6 in one hand, half a dozen in the other. If the pipe and the installation of it is negligible against selling it, you know, you're kind of at square one, in my opinion. But what's the maximum amount of the grant we're going for? That's the key, right? Because if we're only doing 3 million, 5 million, what are we
I
doing?
mean, the community development block grant is $1 million, period. No questions asked.
And the rest is from
County.
county. How much we got in the construction account that's not allocated for other projects?
It's not but like $1.2 million, and that was allocated from some other stuff, wasn't it?
Yeah. I don't know that we have anything sitting there that I would feel comfortable at this point saying, you know, if it's $100,000, that's one thing. If it's $1 million, I feel certain saying we don't have that sitting there available to use to match a CDBG.
Right. And so my brain starts to working on what we typically have had left over at the end of the last 2 cycles was about $1 million. And as opposed to going out to the department saying, hey, here's this money, now we're buying down capital projects. Unless y'all have allocated that money already. Nope, that's what I thought.
So, repeat that now.
So, you know, for the last 2 years, we got to the end of the cycle, we've had about $1 million left over, and we had departments come back in and ask for those funds, and we've reallocated those. So I'm suggesting instead of doing that, if we follow the same plan, unless our budget went up $1 million, then allocate those funds towards paying down capital projects, whether it's this or this and something else, if we have not allocated those funds.
Yeah, but there's probably 3 other conversations around what to do with that money too.
I've not been privy to those
No,
conversations.
we've had them in here talking about sewer, water, courthouse. I mean, all those have got to be paid for out of something, and we don't have budget for any of them. And this is a part of the water and sewer, but not growth of water and sewer. This was an opportunity based off of a grant opportunity that's not available for other areas that we were talking about, trying to get some expansion, including, you know, the water expansions that we're doing now that are not going as far as we thought they would because the costs are a lot higher than they were.
Right. And we know we can leverage bonds for some of those things. I mean, the courthouse numbers are going to be astronomical. We started that project, I don't know how many years ago, and it's still in committee. Not that this is the forum for that, but I'm pretty confident that's going to be a splash project unless y'all find some magic money that I don't know about. So, again, I'm back to potentially that money, and it doesn't have to be a straight, full 100% allocation, but even if it was $250,000, $500,000, whatever, that's service debt, right? And you're amortizing that over maybe a 4 or 5 year period, as opposed to not doing the project because we don't have all of the money, but we have a definite need. We got people who need water, and we also have a need for fire protection in the area. And I'm not saying that's more important than a courthouse, but I can tell you personally, I value water over courthouse at my house, and I value a fire truck, I think, over that, just in case, because I've been in 2 house fires, so I like that fire truck a whole lot. With
Fire
water.
truck's got to hook to something.
Absolutely, with water. But,
And I had this conversation with Commissioner Wood, and I mean, you know, the Bradley water supplies, you know, obviously this is a need. But we also need to look at our supply and the shortage of, because we're pretty much maxing out, what I understand. Tell me if I'm wrong, with what we're doing now. And, saying you put the cart before the horse, it's, you know, do it that way, but we got to consider that we got to have supply too. And I'm not, again, I'm looking at Bradley. Bradley is a project that's needed, but we also got to look at other needs, and that's water supply.
just so I hear you correctly, are you saying the people in Bradley's need for water supply might be different or reduced versus some people in Gray if
I'm
a
talking
housing
about
project,
this whole county's supply. But
I
I'm
got
just-
you.
I'm
But
not,
if you
I'm
use
not
that-
knocking the,
Yeah.
you know, I'm letting you know, this is a need.
but if you use that as a premise, then that means we can't do any future development because all of that requires supply.
I'm trying to get the board to realize that we need to be thinking outside, you know, on other areas of supply also.
I got you.
You know, we got to talk about courthouse and everything. I said, don't forget, that we've got to have water supply to fill these lines. So that's going to be another need when we got to talking about the conversation, Commissioner Kitchen talking about the conversation we had with courthouse.
I understand, but if you preface it with supply, then that means no other projects, because 60 people out there. If it's a project that requires more than that many gallons, then we can't do that project.
No, I'm talking
Without
about
having a supply
No,
conversation.
that ain't what I said.
Okay, I'm just making sure.
No,
Okay.
no, that don't say a word about it. That's
Okay,
an
let's-
important project. But we also have to consider that another fault that this board needs to think about is making sure that we're allocating for the supply that's needed for this whole entire community.
And I want to,
I hope, I might not be saying it right, but we gotta have additional water too.
We know we've needed water for a while, right? Tim has been bringing that to us for
That's always
ages.
a, as you add customers, you need to think about additional supply
Right,
needs.
absolutely.
well, I want probably a very unpopular point, but I think we're confusing an emergency water need over an opportunity, because this has not been discussed as an emergency project until we got an opportunity for a grant to pay portion of it. Nobody said last year during budget season, we got to run water to Haddock or Hungerford Road or any of this because we got people without water and we got people without fire service, that I heard. I thought this was a project we looked at as a need project because we were having the ability to get $1 million of free money to go towards it. If
So-
that's the case, then we just need to figure out whether we got the money to match the $1 million grant. And that, to me, that would mean if we had the money to match it for Hungerford Road or Haddock or 49 or Upper River Road, it's still the same match money.
So clarify for me, this is about emergency water, because I didn't.
No, that's what I was hearing, that we've got to run this because people don't have fire service out there. They've got the same fire service now that they had last year.
Okay.
And the year before, well, since Haddock's been there and since Hungerford Road's been there, and that's been a long, long time.
Gotcha.
Not that any of us are happy with that service, because we are dependent on our fire trucks to haul water out there. Yes, we all want a fire hydrant to hook them to. That's where we feel most comfortable. But the reason we were looking at this project, I assumed, was because we had an opportunity to get some grant money that we wouldn't have to fund all of it. But when I look at an overall picture of a grant, and it's $1 million of grant money and $3 million of our money, it's usually the other way around. It's usually 20 to 50% match at the most for grant money.
Right.
I believe this is mushroomed, I don't mean to interrupt Dayline, but I believe this is mushroomed into from $1 million project of, we take the first $1 million and see how far we can go down Hungerford Road into running all the way, almost to corner of Green Settlement and Highway 11 for a water tank, and then, possibly running back. It's really mushroomed in from $1 million project to a $7 million project, and that's where I think we kind of went down an alley when the focus of the grant and discussion was, is a multi-year application, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe if we are awarded this year, we take that first $1 million, we go as far as we can.
Well, I think what Greg's saying, though, is we won't get that $1 million if we don't supply it to 80 houses.
Right, we've got to run it as far as we can, and that's where we got to calculate how many houses how far can we go?
But to get these,
I thought it was 50 to 60. Is
to
it
get
80?
these 50 or 60 houses, we're at the $3.5 million price tag, right? Because it's 2.1 to take it to the houses. It's 1.3 or some variation of that for a storage tank. If we're going to use the tank we got, then at a minimum, help me out here, are we looking at 500 or are we looking at half of the 1.5 million for a booster pump? Because we got to have something to get water to that tower.
At a minimum, you're looking at 250.
All right, 250 for the booster pump.
That's correct.
And then how much to get the tower stood up, not the tank, the standpipe?
No more than $1.3 million.
No more than $1.3 million, so.
Could be half of that, could be 400,000 or
All right,
500,000.
we're gonna go with 500,000 to just to conservative. And then we know we got 2.1 to get to the Hungerford Road, 68 to 70 houses. Is that fair?
Right.
So we're looking at 2.172 plus 750. So we're looking at 2.93,
Yeah, 2.922851.
yeah, 2.9 million minimum.
And then we're funding 1.9.
We're funding 1.9 to get 1 million. And traditionally, grant money is to get $1 million, you're looking at a $100,000 match or $200,000 match.
Yeah. I think,
500.
yeah, I was going to say, I think because we're rural and where we are in terms of where our water reach is, our numbers are going to be skewed, right? We know that. Even going out 49, that project is ballooned because it costs more to get further away from the density. But going into a dense neighborhood, 60 folks is pretty good considering, I think I just saw a project, was it 240,000 for 5 houses? I can't remember.
Is
It was
that
Sand Creek
Grady?
Trail.
Is that Grady or?
That might have been Saint, I can't remember, yeah.
So let's be clear now, Sand Creek Trail was way more than 5 houses. How many
Yep.
houses are on Sand Creek Trail?
I don't know. But the numbers done.
I do, there was about 80 on that one.
Yeah.
So,
And definitely, then it wasn't 250,000 for 80 houses. It was, because one of them we just said no to because the numbers didn't make
yeah, that was
sense.
10 houses for
That
200.
was like Gordon or
Okay.
something.
Yeah.
like
So that was 25,000 per
Harvey Gordon,
household.
something like that.
Where this project is closer to 8,000 per household.
It's Gregory Drive.
Gregory Drive.
And-
Party
Okay.
Drive.
And we didn't do that one because the numbers didn't add up.
Right.
But I think the proof in the pudding is Greg's saying, based on grant standards, that they're looking for this level for comparison of cost per household.
Yep.
And we're way above that threshold, so the decision is not, is it a good deal? The decision is the need match where we gotta find the money from? And
You know, it's it's a fact that you have people out there that are underserved, and then you also got a fire protection issue. Right, those two for me are neat enough, right, to be close to 8,000, right. If that number was 50,000, I might look a little differently, and I might ask John, hey, what else can we find, right? But down at 8,000, 9,000 a household, I think between Jason, Greg, and whomever else, we can articulate a strong enough case for why our costs are that high. Why we're further away from the water source, we're rural, and maybe captivate, the application reviewers in that way.
based on these numbers, we gotta come up with 1.9 million, and the grant's due June 1st. And we got 1.2, so we don't have the 1.9 if we all agreed right now to move forward with this one project out of the whole list of them we got here to talk about. The first project we're talking about is well over what we got the ability to pay for now.
And it's 1.2 today, right? And then that's before we get to the next budget cycle, right?
But that 1.2 is already committed on other projects, correct?
Yeah, yes.
We really don't have 1.2 because it's already been committed to other projects.
Correct. Some of that goes towards the bond payments on the 15 million, and then I think there are a couple other projects that we've identified to pay for out of that.
Realistically, we don't even have the 1.2 at this point because this board's already dedicated.
So just for clarification, because I want to make sure, I voted to pay out all the 1.2 million already, or we're talking about what we're going to vote to pay out?
No, I mean, the board authorized the selling of $15 million in bonds.
Right, got that.
Part of the repayment
Yep.
on that was using some of that new construction
I remember that.
money. And
How much of that money?
I'd have to go look on that.
Below $1 million, below $500,000?
Maybe $500,000. So it's going to, we don't want to use any more than that than we have to. The board voted to change rates there, and so
Yep.
just this month, we'll start seeing those increased revenues coming in from that. And so that'll kind of dictate how much of that we have to use, and then we have some SPOS money to go with that. So,
Gotcha.
but
I'm just making sure, because I don't remember allocating all of it. I just want to make sure.
Standpipe's dead. it no longer meets the latest International Building Code guidelines. He told me the guy that owned the company, he's the one that, I emailed their info while y'all were talking, and he called me. He said he might could sell it, Gov Deals, at a 60-foot tank. He said he wouldn't take it any higher because he said his liability company would not let him put it up. So,
it's currently up, though. We just need to fill it,
no,
or
it's
it's not.
currently
So
packed
then
up
that
in
means
a-
we can't put it up,
Correct.
because it won't meet standards for us if we can't sell it and meet standards for somebody else.
Well, he told me he wouldn't put it up over 60 foot.
Which gives us a third of what we were just talking about,
When-
capacity wise.
Wind loads, moments, overturning moments, or the length or the height squared. So 60 is, it's 3,600, 120 is 14,400, so.
And I know this is getting off the interstate on an exit ramp, but currently, we're talking about expansion of water systems, and we're kind of going out from existing lines. Is that a fair assessment? How far are we to bridge the gap from where our end line is if we extended more water lines going out to this section that we're talking about? Are we talking our own money to do this without the 1 million? Because if we're talking about bond money that we've already had to sell to get to increase our infrastructure now, at some point it might be a better opportunity to expand that project to include this than try to come up with cash money out of pocket now to get a little bit of grant money. What I'm hearing, Greg, and tell me if I'm wrong, but what I'm hearing is, based on grant guidelines, this is not a good deal for us. And I know that's blunt, but I tend to be that way sometimes.
It would be tough to get a competitive project out of it without putting more match in. The last time we had a community looking to serve a water project in an area that's rural, the way that they did it, and I did it in parentheses because they're still trying to work out money because it came in over budget, was they said that they would do all of the labor in-house of installing every single one of those lines. And that's how they got to the point of where they felt they could get a project that worked. But even then, right now, they're also still looking at $500,000 over budget on that project. So.
Because of materials.
Yeah.
True.
So in most cases, the communities that have been successful with the water projects recently have put in a significant amount of match. If you try to, let's say hypothetically, we said, we're gonna cut Hungerford Road in half, we're only gonna do half of the way down the road there. Well, at that point, if you cut out half of the houses, we'll say, you're jumping your price up to about 15,000 per person, or 16,000 per person, which now it's possible, maybe next year DCA is gonna come around and say, hey, this is our new guidance because prices have shot up all across the board. This is our new recommendation. But they have not quite gotten to that point yet where, if we are an outlier, it makes me nervous for the county's competitiveness. That doesn't mean we can't do it, but it does mean that you are making a significant investment of, resources into a project that is not particularly competitive.
I think I think with what we know today, if you expand the water system in Bradley 3,000, 4,000 feet, 5,000 feet in any direction, you're gonna have to put a tank up. Because you'll have no way to guarantee your fire flow.
And we know
If
we
you
gotta
put it
get,
out there, you don't need to put fire hydrants.
yeah, and we know we gotta get that tank up to get any more than 4,000 or 5,000 feet.
Yeah.
So to get it all, we gotta have a tank anyway. No,
Right,
there's
that's
no
right.
way around that. And I mean, my personal opinion is if we're going that direction, not that direction meaning towards Hungerford Road, but that direction meaning expansion out there, we figure out the best way to get there. And if that is expansion of our commitment to get it out there, we do it outside of this grant. But I'm personally, I'm hearing Greg say is, and for order us to piecemeal it, we're gonna get back to a point where our price point per house is so high that we're not competitive, and we're gonna make a commitment here and have people thinking we're gonna run a project out there and then we're not gonna get the grant. And if we didn't have the 1.9 million up front to match the grant, and we don't get the 1 million, are we saying we're gonna find 2.9 million? At that point, I would say we expand on the project we got, water project we got now, and see what that takes to get to Hungerford Road. Because I do agree, I personally, I'll just say this now, I won't vote for a project going out there if it doesn't have water, if it doesn't have fire hydrants to it, because then we're not reducing our risk. We gotta have fire hydrants,
Right.
even if it's just to a certain point where we can fill up a truck and go from there, not fill up a truck here with tanks, with fire hydrants. I don't know how y'all feel about it, but I think we can piecemeal it as far as do a third and a third and a third, but I don't think we can piecemeal it as do a little bit and a tank that is good for now, but it won't be good for tomorrow, and we're gonna have to take good money after bad next year. I think, like John was saying, we piecemeal it as in we do 1/3 all in, and then we do the next 1/3 all in. I don't know, maybe that's a question for Tim and them that we can get there with expansion of our water project.
I think the challenge with expanding the water project is that this project has free money, right? Because the cost doesn't change, no matter if you add it on to the other project, it's just an add-on, right? You don't get a bonus because you're just doing more, it's just the costs are what they are. But in this project, you get a free $1 million. And that's hard to just say no to.
We do, but if we're putting all of our resources in the match money, and then we don't have the ability to bond more money or to borrow more money because you're already paying out, you already paid out your savings account, now you emptied your bank account, well, nobody's going to give you credit.
If those were true, then I would agree with you. But the problem is, I think with that theory is that we do have excess funds in our reserves, and we also have not factored in the additional resources that we'll get from the water rates and the new customers. And the fact that each year we do have these excess funds that have gone unallocated. So I'm okay with making the necessary expenditure to fix a problem, right? If there is a problem, if it's an emergency or if there's a need and we're solving fire protection and water, I don't have a problem with that because I've seen us spend money on worse. And I'm not saying that those things weren't priority, but I think water is more important than just about anything else we can spend money on. And this is one of those times where, hey, for 8, 9, 10 years, there's some things we've not allocated funds for, and it costs us more now because we've delayed it, right? So, be honest with your department heads. Hey, you know what? Guess what? This year, we're not doing a budget. You're going to get a 10% cut because we've got real projects. We've got $45 million on the. I don't know if that's what we're talking about next, but there's $45 million on that, plus $26 million here, plus $3 million here. This is not a year to ask for increases. This is a year for us to get tight and fix the stuff that we need to fix because water is serious. We can't grow a county without water. I don't care what happens. And if we can't service the people that are already here, how are we going to grow?
Yeah, I agree. We got to have water and we got to expand it, and I think we got a plan to it. But I think that plan included SPLOST money, new customers, and rate increases, which we've already voted on all 3 of those. Those are already in the plan. And my thought is we're probably just going to have to push that out a little longer as far as the debt service on it. If we need more money to go farther, we do the same thing we've done with the anticipation of new customers coming into the fold. I don't think we're in a place, because we committed all that stuff in the water project knowing we were going where we were going, and we all agreed to it. I'm just concerned that we're not going to we only got one surplus, and once it's gone, it's gone. I definitely don't want to count my chickens before they hatch, meaning that we're going to have a excess of $750,000 or $1 million in the year's budget, because let's be real, we've had some good years the last couple of years. Inflation's up, price of everything is up, people are spending money. That's where our money's coming from all these taxes that are being spent, and property taxes.
I think our millage rate, even not adjusting it and rolling it back, has generated the bulk of that. It wasn't just retail sales. And I'll forward you a copy of our leakage report that we just saw last week. We're not capturing all of that, but we're still making money. But it's that households that are paying taxes and the growth of that base as a result of just the value of homes increasing. And these people have been participating in that like everybody does. House tax goes up, they pay it. And one of the two services we get to provide is water and road. Yeah, fire and police, but if we don't have the water out there, we're not getting fire.
This is true. But you said people's taxes go up.
Absolutely. They're paying more, even though the millage rate is the same because the value of the house has gone up. I know I'm paying more for my house.
And we have rolled it back every year. So the only time you're paying more is if your house valued more.
That's my point. The houses value more, and our digest
And
has
there's
proven.
no way we can control that.
But our house, my point, Sam, is that the digest has grown over the last 2 years as a result of the valuation of homes.
That's
Period.
that is true.
It's not from sales tax. It's not from people buying more, because the cost of goods is just being passed on at the cash register. It's not a direct, increase for us. Because a box of cereal went up $1, we don't get an extra $1. We just get that 7 cents on the end of it, or 9 cents, whatever the splash is at this point. But when that house goes up, 10,000, 20,000, 50 or 100,000, you're getting that.
And the cost of services that were $10 for every $100 is now $20 for every $200. It's still the same. So the services have increased.
But our digest is not dependent on the services, sir. That's the only thing.
But our services are dependent on the digest.
Hey, all I'm saying is, if we don't do a service, our digest is what it is. And it's grown.
Our digest dictates the services. It does that. And I'm going to be the first to say I think we've done a good job providing the best services we can with the digest that we have. We're talking about going into debt for something that we can't afford. We just, if it's got to be, we got to figure out how to get there. And I agree that we need water out here and we need fire protection out here. Fire protection first, in my opinion, because people have wells. We had a situation where people didn't have wells and couldn't get water, so that was a little bit of a different story. But in my opinion, fire protection first if people have got access to water. But getting the fire extinguishers, getting the fire plugs out there gets us water out there. So it's all in one. I just think we got to figure out how to do it, and I don't know that this grant opportunity is the right way. Even though it's free money, it's costing us a lot up front to get that $1 million, I think.
I think no matter what our water projects are, because of where we are in the system, getting to that next customer costs more money. We've seen it with Trico Go, right? That last mile costs the most money. And that's when the government had to kick in and do its part. And this is one of those scenarios. And I'm not trying to hang my hat on a project. I'm hanging my hat on the needs of the people. So if this is we can't afford it, literally every project after this one, we can't afford. So I'm just going to say, I'm going to have the same argument. I don't care if it's down the street from your house. I'm going to have the same argument that, hey, remember on this day here in March that y'all said we don't have enough money, so we don't have enough money.
I'm not saying we can't afford it. I'm saying we can't afford the criteria to get that $1 million. The project is still a valid project to me, and if we're in agreement that we're going to do this, we figure out how to do it. I don't think we spend the $1.9 million today to get $1 million when we're doing things that we don't have to do today. So if we're talking about doing this project, Then we can break it back down into the way John's talking about. We don't have to have that $1 million. We don't have to do $4 million worth of work to get $1 million. We can do $1 million this year, $1 million next year, $1 million next year, and we build the line out down the road with no tank, no house hooked up. The next one we build it down there, we got the houses hooked up, we got a tank. And by year 2 or 3, we've got houses, tanks, water pressure, and infrastructure.
All right, because you made me smile. So you're saying you're going to commit to doing $1 million worth of this project each year?
I'm saying that
Without
to get
the
to this
grant?
project, I'll let the professionals tell us how to get there. I'm
Okay.
just saying, for me, I don't think this is the right pathway to get there. I think we need to get there, 100%. I think we need the water and we need the fire protection. I don't think the requirements needed to get that $1 million is the way to go. That's all I'm saying.
Is Lynn Haven where's the farthest the water goes out?
At the intersection of Wheeler and Highway 11. There's a fire hydrant right there by the driveway going into the church.
So that's the very last spot.
That's the last spot.
And then you got one down at Hungerford Lake, that's the, well, that's a, driveway. That's the next closest sort. Isn't there one down Wheeler too, and there a dry hydrant on Wheeler also?
There's a few of them down that way.
Right.
Dry
But-
hydrants.
Dry, but I mean, it's, but still, it's,
If they've ever been hooked to or used, I've never heard of anybody hooking down Wheeler to anything.
that's y'all's expertise. I don't know where, I just, a stem sticking out of the ground, but, anything else on this?
Just out of curiosity, Don, no fire protection. Have we had any house fires down in that Bradley area?
Hungersford Road Day after
Christmas.
Christmas.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Total loss?
Total.
Absolutely,
Yep.
yes.
Would you say that if we have a fire down there, typically is the expectation total loss because of access to water?
We can't go with that mindset, but yes.
Okay.
That
Thank
was
you.
Willie Tom's house, wasn't it? Yeah,
Green.
Yeah.
Wood Green.
yeah, Willie Tom.
Yeah.
Do we have any other places in the county in that same scenario?
Yes, sir.
I don't even know where, I just making a point.
Right.
Jane.
Only difference is this project's on the table with $1 million, sir.
Sometimes, if you ain't got it, Jason's already explained what some of that money's dedicated for.
Chris, I'm going to tell you, we find money for the stuff we want to find money for, so I don't want to hear what we can do. I know what we can do if we put our minds to it. I've seen that done.
Yeah.
I know it's possible. Okay. Only takes 3 votes.
Anything else in this work session? Mr. Ezra, is anything else we need to cover on this work session, or are we?
Tim, you want to talk sewer now?
Whenever, if they want to try to do that, or we can come back next month or next meeting.
We got,
What was the sewer on the
This one, right?
Yes.
Okay.
wastewater extension, or are you back on the purple one?
No, I mean, it's, if the board's gonna do a CDBG this year, it's between the Phase 1, Phase 2 project or Bradley's water, whichever y'all pick.
This one next.
You wanna,
I'm just asking.
yeah,
which one.
I mean, we can hit this one right quick. Yeah, and it goes with the map that's there. Several years ago, we did the Sun Valley CDBG project, put pump station and force main in. And that's part of that's around it's on the New Clinton side of the Sun Valley Pond that's shown there. To expand sewer customers, the next phase, Phase 1, as shown on the map, it's actually 1 and 1A, is roughly $2,066,000.
What's the customer count in that area?
39.
Thank you. And then the second phase, the second area that would be fairly easy to serve would be Phase 2, and he came in at $1,603,000. and it's 29, bless you,
It's how many customers?
29.
So 68 for 3.6 million.
Yes,
And 60, how many was in this one?
68
68. Wow, look at that.
for 7 One.
No, sir. No, sir. We got it down to 2.933. Good try. You forgot I was an engineering major, huh?
so. And this would be, the CDBG would be just an extension of the Sun Valley gravity line, would run up New Clinton, and either run up Alton, or part of Alton and Adahi, or it would run up Arethea, and part of Bethune. We would decommission septic tanks and tie houses on. What we did. We expect all this to be done with gravity and no grinder pumps like we end up having to do in Sun Valley.
So just for clarity purposes, sewer costs us more to treat than water, correct?
Yes,
And when we tie these customers on, we're tying them to Macon, right?
correct.
With the goal of getting towards the industrial park and flipping the switch, right?
Yeah, we would have, it'd be additional customers for whenever y'all decide to build a
Gotcha.
plant if you go that route.
Same pot of money or different grant?
CDBG, it's $1 million. We'd do one or the other.
And we had already discussed this in a little bit, Greg, Daylon, before you. We'd looked over this one before you got here real quick when you first, and that was, I think, unless I'm wrong, that's why we moved to this one. We were,
Water's more important than sewer, I get it.
yeah, but,
Yeah.
and I did the same engineering math on it. I was like 1.9 versus 2.6.
Uh-huh.
Our money.
Yeah. You know, obviously this is in my district. It connects to some other projects and we still got some sewer issues. Water is more important than sewer to me, and fire protection. So if we had to do one of these projects, I'd happily yield to the other district in support of that because water is more important than sewer. I get the big picture, but I couldn't support this knowing that we have people without water.
The problem we run into for CDBG grants, there's only a handful of census tracts in the county that qualify.
Right, I knew that.
There's not many.
Benefit is we get to do one of these each year, but if we start on this project, it's 3 years. I get that. And I'd rather have water and fire and not loss of house.
And on this Huntersford Road, those 68, are we sure that they would become customers?
No. I mean, that's
That's how many houses are through there.
correct.
So
That's
there's no
correct.
guarantee how many tap-ons or how many services will actually serve.
No. The one thing though about block grant, whether it's sewer or water, it allows us to run to the house and physically tie to the house. They're the only program that does. So if somebody
They would
was
have a
out
tap-on
there,
fee for, they
Yeah,
would have to
waives
pay a
that.
15 it absorbs all of the tap-on fees.
that is strictly up to y'all.
I mean, because that was my one big concern is I know that that is a large sum and not a large sum to everybody, but in my paycheck, it's a large sum.
It's a large sum to a lot of people.
So if I had to keep my well or tap on for $1,500, if I've got water, I'm gonna keep my well. But if I don't have water, that $1,500 is saving me a lot of money from putting in a well.
We can waive that as part of the grant.
That's what I wanted to see.
Tim, do we, and I don't want to beat a dead horse on that other one because I know it sounds like I'm not in agreement, but I am in 100% agreement that we need the water out there. I'm just not in agreement about the grant stuff. So have we run any numbers on $1 million grant? Do we have a defined match, or is it only based off of competition, that
You're-
grant, or is there a?
If you do a $3 million project, your match is $2 million.
If we're gonna do $1 million project,
You've got,
Your required match is about 50,000.
50,000.
That's the requirement from DCA.
So if we look at it from a point of, and there's a requirement of a house,
Yes.
okay?
You have
So-
to have at least one beneficiary, and if you ask for $1 million,
So
it's
let me-
about 50,000 match.
So let me reframe that a little bit. If we agreed to put $250,000 match money for $1 million grant, and it goes down that way to get 5 houses and a tank, or a booster pump, or whatever it takes to get us to that 5 house, the first leg of 3 for $250,000 this year. Next year, we got an opportunity to apply for a grant again for $1 million. We put another $250,000 into it. We get leg 2. We're catching people as we go and getting fire service as we go. For $250,000 of our money every year, based off of an opportunity to get $1 million free. In the end of 3 years, we got $750,000 in it, and we got $3 million free money, and we got $3.75 million in a project at the end of 3 years.
you're probably not gonna get funded. Because if you go down and serve 20 houses and there are 45 people in it, you're probably not gonna get funded. That's the problem you run into. It's all about how many people are, and it'd probably be, unless some of those houses have 6 or 8 people or 10 people in them, you probably don't stand a chance to be.
And that's the bad thing about competitive grants. We don't know who else is applying and what their density factor is on a road. They
You sure
may have
don't.
3 houses with 3 people in them over the first
So how far down Huntersford
3 miles.
Road is this going?
9,000 feet.
It'll go down to the church. It'll hit a little bit.
Damascus?
Is it St. Anne's or St. James? St. James.
St.
Thank you. And then a little bit on Norcross, a little bit on Thornton, just a short bit on Old Highway 11 on each side to cover those right there. And then the other project went up Highway 11, crossed the railroad track, went down Morris, and hit the little area that's paved right in there, a few houses.
And that route's determined off the most number of houses that we can get, or shortest route, or a combination of both.
That's the shortest route to where a proposed tank would be, and as many houses we could get with it.
If we don't apply, we don't try.
I agree.
The way I look at it.
I agree. To Sam's point, I don't want to make a promise to people that we can't follow through on, but I can promise that I'll try, and we put forth the application and we work it. We know from the time that the grant is allocated, we have a certain amount of time to get the project started, funded, and so on. And that could take years. I mean, we're at the tail end of a grant that we received, and we haven't kicked off anything. This is, I think, is a little different in that we know we need to put some water there, and we know we have to have fire protection. So the onus would be on us to move. I don't know how y'all can articulate it any better to fund the next phases, right? Because we're going to hit all the houses in the first one. I don't know if the water tank or something else later qualifies because it serves that area, even though it's not a direct connection, right? But I like the idea that Sam and John have about piecing it together in phases. So however we need to do that, let's figure that out, in my opinion, if we're going to move forward on one of these, to take advantage of the free money and leverage some assets. And let's be wise about what we spend money on this year, to take down some of this debt and really allocate. And I don't mind if we allocate our funds for everything that we need, and I don't have a penny left over, because I'm okay with my mortgage being paid, the lights are on, and the refrigerator's full of food, and the gas has car and maintenance, right? I'm okay because I've covered all my basic needs. I can't get a new pair of boots this year, and that's okay. So tell the sheriff no new cars.
That's false anyway. They're already allocated. Yeah, I mean, I would support going for the grant. I just can't support us spending $2 million to get $1 million and not be where we think we're going to be as far as catching the houses and the fire protection that we need. Because I think we're going to piecemeal a tank, we're going to piecemeal a pump, and we're not going to get as far as we thought, especially when the prices are much higher than they've ever been. And, you know, the less we pull back, the less competitive we are in the grant side of it. And that's what we're bumping up against, which is why I said I don't think maybe it's just not a good, anytime you can get $1 million, it's good.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll support that. But I can't support $1.9 million of money we don't have.
That's basically what Commissioner Wood said, the same thing, is, try to at least apply for it, but, if we get it, fine, we can build upon it. Again, we got to have, I like to have a hidey hole.
So, hey, Greg, is this something y'all can apply for and try to get us as competitive as possible, and knowing that we don't have $1.9 million to throw at it?
We'll get it as competitive as possible for how much match y'all put in. Yeah, I mean, and that's the honest answer on it. You can only apply for this every other year if you do get funded. So that's the other thing about phasing, is that it's a 2-year cycle. If you do get funded, it's going to stretch it out a little bit longer. But, you can apply for a phase that's just a tank, for example. But then the other thing that gets complicated with that is that if you apply for a tank, you have to survey every single person in the county who might get served by that tank. And at that point, you're going to struggle to qualify the LMI threshold if you are looking at any household that could benefit from that tank. So those are the challenges of phasing. It is perfectly admissible under the program to do that, but it's going to take longer, and you do have to account for the big expenditures that serve multiple neighborhoods. You really should try to just tie that into, this is part of this project. We're not just doing a standalone tank, if that makes sense. That's an easier, DCA is more receptive to the argument that way.
Anything else? Anything?
So we're applying.
So what are we doing?
That's a good question.
And if we are going to apply, what exactly do you want us to put in there in terms of project elements and matching funds, and where to get those matching funds?
Yeah, that's the last sentence is the problem for me.
Go ahead, John.
Well, we're going 50,000. We're not going to have a chance.
No.
And I would say $250,000 to $500,000 is what we need to put with county money into the project, because the pump's going to be a factor in there. So we have the water pressure. So that's something y'all can discuss, between $250,000 and $500,000 of county money into the $1 million grant.
I'll support 250 easy.
So just to be clear, we need 2.933, correct?
What is that? What do y'all want to fund? I guess is the question.
We know-
I don't know where you got 2.933 from.
That was the last number that was given. That included, I think the booster pump, and it included Hungerford Road, and I want to say there was another $500,000 in there for,
But then we got confused on the pipe.
it was the
Can't
pipe.
use the pipe.
Yeah,
It was
but-
back up to
It was the pipe.
1.3 or whatever it
Yeah,
was
so
for the tank.
if we need this whole storage tank in there to make that work, you're looking at a total project cost of
3.4.
$3.89 million, which would mean 2.89 of match would be needed for all of that. So you'd have to take out the storage entirely, which I don't know if that becomes a feasible project.
Yeah, do some flow testing and see.
Maybe. So that's a maybe. So if you do take out the storage entirely, you're at 2.4 million
Right.
or so for a total project cost.
Right.
To do just the 250 for the booster pump, Hungerford Road, and the budget does not include grant administration, so that's another 60 in there.
You know, our luck's not that good either, so if you figure the worst scenario and come up
When
with
you
a
say,
pass,
you say well, our luck's not good, you mean applying for grants or?
I just our luck in general. You know,
Oh,
overage, particularly in this economy.
gotcha. So 2.4 million on $1 million grant, we'd have 1.4 left over, right?
Yes.
And we can't apply for another grant like this or to couple with this for 2 years, right?
Correct. If you get awarded in this year, your next application can be submitted in 2025.
Right. So in my mind's eye, Sam said 250, John said 500,000, and I like the 500,000. I'm just going to add in some of that surplus that we've had, maybe 500,000 of it each year. I don't know. And we're there, right? It's 500 plus 500 surplus plus 500 surplus the next year. That's 1.4 million. All right, we got it.
No math, that scares me.
I know, it's okay. I got you,
Jason,
though.
you looking at the chart down there. Is any of that in there anywhere?
Yeah.
I just don't think we can.
If I had to give you a
We can't
raise
swing it.
today, would you tell me that I could find that half million?
I mean, we're tapping out our resources.
General fund.
General fund if necessary, but hopefully from the excess funds that we've had each year. So all I'm going to say is this: I'm okay with whatever excess funds we have allocated no more than $500,000 to amortize down this project over the next 3 years. Because we're asking for $500,000 from this board. You said 250, you said 5. I'm gonna go with you. And then we're gonna do $500,000 this year out of surplus and $500,000 out of next year's surplus. Be done with it.
You're using surplus that we've already did.
Hey, we don't know what's left. He said we allocated some of it. He didn't give me a hard number. I don't have a hard number,
You're
sir.
wishing.
If I had a hard number, I would be right there with you. But I'm willing to reduce public works by about that much.
Anything else we can have a break before we go to open session?
So we're giving them directives to go after this project.
We got, it's gonna come up.
It's gonna be the
2.4 million.
first agenda item on the next
All right,
meeting.
I'm just making sure so they understand.
Somebody wanted this thing.
Quick, public comments. Any public comments? So, Bucci, you wanna say something? Come on up here and tell us where you live, your name. Yeah. Hey, Bucci, ladies first. Come
Come up to the podium.
Come up here to the front and
You gotta
introduce
state your
yourself.
name.
State your name, tell us where you live at.
My name is Brenda Middlebrooks. Okay. The question I want to ask, I live off of Slocum Road. Hungerford Road straight down. The left is Slocum. I live off of Slocum. Where it is, my water is hooked up to my daddy's house, you know, the well, and they ran pipes from his well down to my house. So that's how I get my water.
So between you and your daddy, it sounds like he would be paying for your water.
Well,
That's what would happen. Unless there's a line going down Slocum Road.
that's what I'm trying to find out with
Right,
it.
there
With
should
a
be.
line.
There should be a
It's
line
part of-
dedicated
yeah,
to
it says it
Slocum.
on here, Slocum.
That's part of the, going
Yeah.
down the
Okay.
block, it'd be Slocum's on the way. So
Slocum's
anything-
on the map.
It's
Okay.
gonna catch the side roads.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah, I just want to know, you know.
What they do is they're picking up everything off of Hungerford all the way down to the, just before you get to the Blands.
Okay.
Same where it's-
Okay.
I saw
I
it. I
just,
wasn't sure if it was in that one, that's why I didn't.
I just wanted to, you know, ask that question.
Oh,
Thank you.
I like the free water from your dad first.
Come on, we're letting ladies first.
My name is Rebecca Smith.
Okay, excuse me, can you speak in the microphone so everybody,
Okay.
you're on
Talking
TV?
to you all.
You're on TV, you're on
Well,
TV.
praise God. Ain't no problem. My name is Rebecca Smith. I live on Hungerford Road also, but we got the people that live back. And where I live behind them, will you all, can y'all go over these people's property to get to us? Because we live way back and we all hook us up way back where we are,
What's your address?
275 Hungerford Road.
So it's, you before the church?
Yes, I am.
Well, any of those outland neighborhoods to there will be on this connection list, correct, Tim?
To,
I mean,
Running down the side road, as long as we got a public right of way.
Right. All we need is a public right of way to go down to hook up to the houses.
well, yeah, they live in the front of us.
Right.
I can't come off their property. But we got a driveway that come way down.
Right.
So will you all go through that driveway to get us hooked up? Because the reason I said that, I heard something else.
Right.
And I want to know.
all right, what was your address again?
275 Hungerford Road.
It goes to the driveway, correct, Brandon? And then from that point, it's their responsibility to hook to the,
That's what I heard.
right. So
That's
mean,
what I
we're
wanna
putting in
know.
the tap, but then from that point, from that tap on your driveway, of that line going to your home would be y'all's responsibility.
So,
Which that's the,
We would be
I thought-
running it down
Right.
Slocum
I thought
Road.
the grant
Slocum
would hook it
Road
to the
is
house.
what you use
Yeah.
as a
For us,
driveway,
for us, it's
correct?
the driveway. For the grant,
no, Slocum Road.
Hold on, listen to
I
this, listen to
I
this.
just told you, I just informed you, the grant carries it to the house.
yeah. So
For
this
us-
grant will carry it. For the water department to do it, it will only go to the road because we don't go on private property.
And then the grant takes it the rest of the way.
But the grant, if we got this grant, we'd be able to come to your house and hook up. Down the
Okay,
down the
I
driveway.
I'm not right on Slocum,
Right down the driveway.
That's right,
on the driveway.
right.
But he
Is there
just
a-
told
is
me
there a
there
limit?
that,
I was
He was
mistaken.
wrong. Don't listen to him.
I mean, no, somebody else told me that. I mean, I want to know.
Normally, that's true, if it's a normal process, but this is special circumstances
But I
because,
can't hear all of you all. I mean, I need to hear one somebody because I'm getting this and I'm getting that. I
Right.
want to
So,
know.
normally, that is true. We only run to the meter at the road. Everything on your side of the meter is yours, our side of the meter at the road is the county. That's normal process. In a grant funding, the grant money actually will pay to go to the house. So in a special situation, it will run to your house. Do we have a limit on length from the road, or is that our decision? Okay.
Right.
So it would run to your house. The answer is yes.
Right. There's two right answers. Yes, the county stops your driveway, but the grant carries it to your house.
Okay, that makes
Okay.
most sense.
Okay.
Okay.
So there was actually two right answers. It was, you just got.
Well, I mean, you know, I want to know. I
Sure,
mean,
that's
I'm
it.
here.
That's what we're here for.
Okay,
All right.
okay.
All right, so she's coming again.
I'm Pastor Wilbur Green, pastor of New Damascus Baptist Church on Damascus Church Road. I heard a lot about Wheeler Road. I heard a lot about Hungerford Road. We're just at the end, kind of like in the curve from them. One question is, will that be extended to the church? Because we would gratefully need it because we're looking at some projects where it's going to need an increase of water as first. I heard another thing that said, sometimes need can be emergency. Some kind of need can be emergency. And the point that I'm making is that I'm 63, and some people are a couple of years older than I am that are here. I don't know how many people are here from Wheeler Road, but I can sit around and see that there's a whole bunch of people from Hungerford Road and Damascus Church Road. So we are really serious about this, and the water is needed. I remember as a little boy getting up, staying up to 3 and 4 in the morning, trying to prime that pump so we can get water, going to bed at 4. And my daddy said, well, you got to take your bath so you can get back up and go to school anyway. One thing about access water, I call it instant water, is that even when the electricity goes out, you still will have, at least some water. You can flush your toilet. It's a need, not only that, but I pastor a lot of the elderly people, and there's a lot of elderly people in this area. And water is not like it used to be. And they can't do all these things. And there's a need, and sometimes a need is an emergency. And I'm 63, and sometimes it seems like, and I know they're listening to me, sometimes it seems like certain parts of the county is on the bottom of the list. And let me say, Bradley is one of those things, because I don't live here anymore, I live in Macon now, but it still looks and feels like that Bradley is on the bottom of the list. Do you understand what I'm saying? And so in the instance that I believe that we need, I think I heard you say this, that we may not can do it all at one time, but it can be done. And I believe that it should be done. And I believe that we should vote for it to be done. One of the tricks, I worked for Housing County and Bibb County, and I wrote programs for taxes. And one of the biggest, tricks, I'm going to say it a little slow, is the millage rate. The millage rate stayed the same. I wrote programs for that. But the value of the house went up. And you got more funds.
Right.
I talk to tax assessors in that way. People are going to pay some things in their taxes. Another thing is this. The cost of the water to some of these people that we're sending it to, it has to be cost effective. I don't know how we're going to do it, but I just believe that, I believe you said this, they didn't have it yesterday, they didn't have it the year before, they didn't have it now, but we've been paying the same taxes. Are our taxes cheaper than anybody else's? Is our house insurance cheaper than anybody else's? You understand what I'm saying? Sometimes need is emergency, and that neighborhood is getting older and older, and some people who I'm blessed, thank God, to retire as well. We're on fixed incomes. And one day I do want to come back to Jones County and to Bradley. I worked away and pastored away, but I'm back at home now. One day I would want to come back, but I don't just want to come back to be honest with you, my wife talks about a well. I says, I had a well, and it wasn't funny to me. You know what I'm saying? It would be great that we would do this, because I believe that Hungerford Road was paved before Wheeler Road. Am I correct? Therefore, I understand, and I watch, and I'm a upfront person, and he'll tell you I am. I'm an upfront person. I saw fire hydrants when I came back home to Pastor going down. Every time I would go down Highway 11, I saw one here, I saw one there, and I saw one there. Then I saw one get to Lynn Haven. Then I saw one go past Lynn Haven. I saw one there. I never saw one go down Damascus Church Road. And there's a water tank up there that used to be functional. You understand what I'm saying? I think sometimes to make us know that you're caring about us, there needs to be, so I don't see funds really going to Bradley. Can anybody tell me where the last money been spent in Bradley? Somebody said, what you said about it? Somebody said, a fireman used to stay in the curve up there. I haven't seen much money. Mr. Wood? Yeah, Mr. Wood.
Brother.
Yeah.
My brother.
Your brother.
Lives there in the curve.
I haven't seen much go there. And like I said, it seems, and while we are here is because it seems like we're not getting that attention. Now, I heard you say, water is more important than sewage. We need water. People need water. I'm going to people's houses, and if electricity is off or something like that, and electricity goes off in Bradley a lot. And then you got sick people. One of my Urshas back here, and they can't function if they don't have water. They can't flush the commode. They can't do these things. Like I said, the taxes haven't changed. The taxes haven't changed. They're the same. Our insurance the same. It's still the same. So I think this is a priority, and whether it's, and to me, since I'm a faith man, I don't think it should take all these years, 6, 7 years that we were trying to span that, because I heard some oohs and ahs, oh, it's going to take a long time. I like the point of breaking it up. There is a way. There is a way. Because I sat in here in a meeting, and I sat, and they solved the problem of a cemetery, and I sat and heard almost $1 million go into other neighborhoods who did not really need that money. We need it in Brandon. And I hope that you would include Damascus Church Road, at least to the church, because we're trying to get a gym there and get a place that we can have adult education and have where people can come in from the outside. We don't have a place, and I believe that it can be done if we stick our heads together. I really do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? We got time for one more, and then we're gonna have to go to our open meeting.
We can be late, we just can't be early.
Amen. Praise the Lord.
Hello,
How you doing?
James Bland, Hungerford Road. Haven't seen you in a while.
How are you?
But I want to piggyback on what the pastor said about the wells in Jones County, especially now Hungerford Road. They all on one single line, and some of the water gets real low at times, and it's difficult for people to do the basic, bathing, having water to drink. If there is a newborn that comes into their household, the baby has to be cared for. You wouldn't want your baby to be given just anything. It's important to have that water. I agree with what you said about the storage tank. If I recall, at our last meeting, we talked about that storage tank that's already present. Whether or not we could use that tank. I don't know if any research was done pertaining to that, but we did talk about the tank that was already present. That would save some of those, $250,000 if it could be used. It is important that we utilize that which we have as well as secure that which we don't have. We build houses because we want to live comfortable like everyone else. We put forth effort to maintain those houses. And just like someone else mentioned, at the end of the year, in December, we receive our tax. And we can question the tax. Most of the time I don't question it because I know you have done your homework. But our tax, they do go up. And we pay it like everyone else. You pay yours, we pay ours. But then because we don't have the hydrants, down that road. When I first got back here, I wanted house insurance because I had done some renovation to my house. I went to Allstate. I went to Farm Bureau. And they said, no, we can't give you house insurance because there are no hydrants there. There are no hydrants there. We needed water so that our insurance rate wouldn't be sky high. And see, even right now, I have everything insured with State Farm. State Farm eventually, after a period of time, gave me house insurance. But it's an arm and a leg. But I need protection, just like everyone else. We need protection down that road. No water down that road, everything is expensive. It's expensive. Now, I know, I heard Pastor Green say, we can do what we want to do. Yes, within reason, we can do what we want to do. But we have to realize that it's important to us. I'm not talking about just Hungerford Road, to Jones County as a whole. It's important that every part of this county be successful. Not just Jones County, not just Gray, not just Hatter, not just Bradley. And just like he said he's 63, I'm 76. But I've been in Bradley a long time. We haven't even had a little small park put in there, for the kids to play. And I was thinking about doing something like that. When Lucky Dude was selling that little land up there, I went and got 2 acres, gonna put something like that out there, but then I found out I couldn't do that. I couldn't do that. And my sister was living at that time. But, we can do a lot of things if we put our heads together and decide that it's not about just a few of us, but it's about all of us. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. If we can get a motion to adjourn the work session to give us about a 5 to 10 minute break, we'll go into the open.
To adjourn, Chairman.
Second.
Second, all in favor, aye. Aye. We want to thank everybody for coming.